Okay, okay.
Okay, we are started. So, welcome back in our channel Rebirth of Communism. Comrade Max
Almost.
from CPGBML Communist Party, Great Britain, Marxist, Leninist, and Workers' Party. There is a news about your country that there are a lot of class struggles in England, in
That's
Great
right.
Britain. So could you say something about these class struggles, and also does your organizations are active in these class struggles and everything? What can you say about this?
Yeah, yeah. So at the moment, as we know, there's inflation, bills, prices are rising for all the workers, um, in in every sense. You know, rents are going up, fuel's going up, food is going up, salaries don't go up, right? So it's the same as always, but it's just particularly bad now after COVID. And on top of that, we have a we have a Tory government at the moment, which not because it's Tory, because of course we know the party doesn't matter, but they are attacking workers' rights to strike. So the most recent um, series of new policies they call let me have a look. They call it the um, minimum service regulations, and what this means is in order for the government, as they justify it, in order to protect the key sectors of the economy, vital sectors of the economy. Let's put ambulances as an example, but so doctors, energy sector, key sectors that they don't want to go on strike. They're enshrining into law that the unions will be obliged to guarantee that a certain amount of workers will continue always to work, so that basically it cannot be disrupted. So all these sectors which the government will choose will not be legally able to be disrupted beyond a certain point, right? And of course, this line is arbitrary. So essentially, it takes the whole point of striking goes out the window, right? Because if you it's like defanging the whole union movement. If your strike is limited at the point where it can cause a disruption or scare the government, then there's no reason why any concessions need to be made. So we would expect to see the unions pushing back hard against these policies, but so far uh, there's been a one-day strike called by the TUC on this. So we see that the Labour Party in opposition, the Social Democrats, they could be expected to maybe stand up to this, but of course they don't. The next barrier is the trade unions. We'd expect them to say something. Of course they don't, and um, I think these are all bitter lessons that perhaps inevitably the working class in Britain is going to have to learn. That social democracy, as well as the trade union movement, have long been corrupted and co-opted, and they work for the ruling class. And if we want to win back any of these rights that are being stripped away, we're going to have to organize properly ourselves from the bottom up. So I think it's a lesson that is gradually being learned, and the party in Britain, are producing leaflets, participating in strikes on picket lines and on the streets, and we are producing um, articles and literature exposing the situation and what different trade unions or parties are doing about it, or not doing about it. So raising consciousness and being there is important. Yeah, this is
And
this is yeah, go on.
what can you say about some explanation which are in Polish or French medias, which try to explain that the bad economic situation in England is because of Brexit, and it is warning to another countries, don't go the way like Britain, because now you see Britain is alone, is no longer in European Union, and there are a lot of economic problems. They make Brexit, so now they are punished of this, and they have economic problems. What can you answer for this? Hello? Oh, there was a Brexit, and this is Max exit. I hope that Comrade Max will come back. We are waiting Comrade Max to come back. This is a lesson, so that it's better not talk about Brexit, because as you see, when we talk about Brexit, the conversation is finished.
Hello.
Hello?
Sorry
You
about. I've had internet, um, little internet blackout.
like in Ukraine?
Yep. Yep. Ay, ay,
There are Wagner troops there that they make blackout.
ay. No, no. Here we do it to ourselves. We don't need the Russians' help.
Okay, so did you heard my question?
No.
Okay, so I repeat my question, that in liberal media in Poland, they try to explain that the bad economic situation in Britain is because of Brexit, and it is uh, they try to explain to the people, if you want to exit the European Union, there will be economic problems and a lot of strikes and stuff like this. So you need to stay in European Union. What can you say about this?
I think that the inflation is worse in some European countries than in Britain, no? So, I
Yes,
mean,
in
it's
in Eastern Europe is bigger than in
if
Britain.
yeah, exactly. So if the economic situation were only bad in Britain and Britain were a country that was going through its own special crisis in the world, where others weren't, then maybe we could look at Brexit as possibly having something to do with it. Um, but given that the crisis is global, well, maybe not global, but especially on the NATO side of things, I would say it's probably more linked to the sanctions. Obviously, I think there's a combination of factors here. There's on one hand the crisis of capitalism, which is happening, but this is compounded even further by the crisis of imperialism. The fact that they are, by trying to isolate Russia and China, the EU and the US and they call it NAFO, I believe now. The NAFO countries, they are actually isolating themselves because the majority of the world's people and production is finding they're going on the side of Russia and China, and rather than cutting ties with Russia and China, the West is simply isolating itself instead of Russia and China. So this is going to be bad for the Western economies. Plus, you have the US printing money as if there's no tomorrow to finance things, and as long as other countries need dollars, the US can just they can just buy commodities in dollars which they've just printed. So the value of those printed dollars, as everyone knows, should cause inflation because the value doesn't correspond to real commodities. So when they export the dollars and buy commodities with it, they're also exporting the inflation. So this the inflation, a lot of the inflation that we see in Europe, I think, is also because of the printing of money that is going on from the USA, from Britain, from European Central Bank, and as this is, I think, accelerating other countries de-dollarizing, like we've heard of Saudi Arabia and all these moves. So it's like the carpet is being taken from under their feet to some extent. They are less and less able to plunder the rest of the world and the global south because of this transition period we're in, and the help that Russia and China can offer to African countries, South American countries. And so the crisis is going to get worse and worse, and it has nothing to do with Brexit. I mean, I think it doesn't take a genius to rule out Brexit from what's happening, Um, so yeah, much bigger than Brexit is my answer.
Okay, so now let's talk about the most important subject, the war in Ukraine. And my question is about your position toward this war. Firstly, I would like to say that in 2014, when there was a uprising in Donbass, for me it was obvious what is my position. In Donbass, there was a class struggle, there was the miners' strikes, there was they defended the monuments of Lenin. There was a lot of red flags, hammer and sickle, and all this explanation that we will try to build the People's Republic, and it was leftist for me, and not for me only for me. There was a lot of volunteers which participated in defending this People's Republic in Donetsk, from communist parties from Spain and other countries. So in 2014, supporting Donbass, it was my position. In February, when Putin started a war, like explanation for this war, he said, I want to make a denazification of Ukraine. So I am anti-Nazi. I support denazification, and I say, okay, the Russia is a capitalist state, but I support denazification of Ukraine. But I see evolution of Russia. I see evolution of discourse of President Putin, that he stopped to talk about denazification. He started to talk about defending the Russian nation, and also now in the Eastern Front there are very active the force of Wagner, and there are rumors that in the Russian force there are also some far right nationalists, even I don't know. I don't want to use the word Russian fascist, but there are some very nasty guys which are fighting in this war, and I have problem with this because that for me all this privatization of the war and using the private company like a Wagner company. Um, I like a communist. I supported solution which existed in Soviet Union, that there is the mobilization of all the nation and the normal war which was before. And now when I see the privatization and nationalist explanation, my 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 support for this operation, which were in February, is less is much more smaller than was, and it's all the time is going down. So what is your position?
That's it's interesting. When it comes to I think that's, well, I would say that I see what you're saying, but I would ask you, what do you think about the last Russian election? The Communist Party of the Russian Federation almost doubling the votes from 10-11% to 19-20% from the previous election. So it's, what I mean is that in Russia, it seems like the popularity of communism, old communism, the name of Stalin and so on. It seems like the trend is on the rise, according to Levada Institute and polls and these things, and election results. It seems that communism is becoming more and more popular, and the Russian people, even more with this conflict in Donbass, have been looking more and more towards the Communist Party. Um, Whereas the line, of course, I mean, we probably agree that Putin is, and the Russia United Party and the current government in Russia doesn't like the communist, would rather not have this opposition being so threatening, and they have obviously a capitalist vision for Russia, and they're not communist themselves. What do you think about this kind of diverging trend?
Yes, for the answer for the question, firstly, I will show you something. Uh, it's my conversation which I made 3 weeks ago with Nikolai Platoshkin. He is one of the leader of this United Communist List. He is not a member of Communist Party of Russian Federation. He has his own movement. It is Movement for New Socialism. But in the last election, they were in this election together, and he was one of the famous candidate of this list. Nikolai Platoshkin in the debates in the television, he was invited like a guy from KPRF, and his wife, she became the deputy of Duma, like KPRF, but unfortunately he was a victim of repression, and many other communists from KPRF were also victim of repression, and it was not allowed that they can be elected. So we recently in last weeks have many conversation about with the Russian communists, and in one side I am agree with you that there are the support for the Russian communists is much bigger than in Western countries. But in other the things which is interesting more for me is that um, the, uh, the the government starting to have starting to make repression against the Communist Party. When this party were smaller, they ignored this and they didn't care. Now when the in some region the popularity of Communist Party. I am not saying about the Communist Party of Russian Federation, because in this last election it was united list and many communists which were never members of KPRF. They united with KPRF in this election, like Patoshkin, and in some regions this list have popularity of 14 or 15%, and in some in the same conversation. Uh, Next, I spoke with uh, with this guy. Wait a minute. He is Oleg Martiniuk. He is a president of small city in Kamchatka. It is the in the far east territory, and the Communist Party didn't won this election, but there were some problems for choosing who will be a ruler of this city, and they chose him. So he is the ruler of one of the biggest city in Kamchatka. It's shown, and he participated in this conversation because he have Polish origin. And it's shown how the communist movement, this communist movement is difficult to say because Platoshkin, he represent from in my opinion the social democratic position, traditionally social democratic position which existed in Europe after Second World War. So he talked a lot about Sweden and the other countries like this. But yes, it's growing. But Russia is changing. Now the freedom of before there were persecution only against the liberals which were financed from the West, the guys from like Navalny, and I don't care. But now they starting to make repression also against the communist movement and against population which don't want to be sending to war and stuff like this. So they it's complicated question.
Yeah. For sure, I expect that there will be a stricter state looking out more and more for dissent as the war intensifies. Probably this happened in every war in history. The state has to be more and more. They use the word authoritarian. But to go back to the question before of do I support Russia or not, I still do, because in the bigger picture, Russian nationalism, which is what I think that we're talking about. Of course, there will be individuals who are better and worse, but the general Russian nationalist trend I see, it's not the same as Western nationalism. Um, it's like the difference between the nationalism of an imperialist state and the nationalism of an oppressed state. One is an offensive one. One is a defensive one. If you look at Russia as a country, as a nation, since the Soviet Union, it is not imperialist. It does not. Um, it's a minuscule player in terms of exporting capital, in terms of having its military abroad. Uh, it's a resource-rich country. It gives natural resources. It produces itself. It doesn't take. It doesn't steal the resources from other countries and sell them finished goods. Let's say the relation that Russia has with other countries, with the global south, is not that of an imperialist and its colony. And I would say rather Russia is more like a colony of the West. And this goes back a long time, since who was it? Peter the Great, who liked the French fashions and came back from Paris and wanted to make the Russian nobility act like the French, and this idea of Russia looking to the West, it has been pervasive for a very long time. I saw a Soviet movie the other day, from the 1960s, and they were making fun of this idea that, someone was saying, in America they do it like this, and we should do everything like in America. And this is finally, I would say, starting to change, where Russia now has given up joining the club. The Russian nationalists, let's say, they've given up uh, being like the West and being imperialists. They're now firmly looking at and saying, you know what, let's just let's just stop this imperialist thing, and we'll be better off. Um, so given that characterization of Russia, that it's not an imperialist country, it's not that they want to just beat NATO and then become the next NATO, and do what NATO were doing. It's not this at all. And obviously they have China, which you cannot take out of the equation ever, because it's the elephant in the room. Um, and so really Russia plays an important role. And I support Russia in this conflict, in the sense that, um, I think the better this goes for Russia and the worse it goes for NATO, I think the better this is for the working class of the world. The sooner the imperialist system comes to an end, perhaps it means the conditions in the West for the working class will be very hard for a time, and and it will require revolutions to happen in the West, in the so-called developed countries, for once, um, socialist revolutions, real ones, perhaps, in order to end this, because I don't see I don't see another way out of this. The US wants to sink Europe. It wants to send Europe against Russia. It's like a repetition of previous world wars. Um, I look at the European countries all sending tanks towards Ukraine, and I see the similarity between the Third Reich and the EU, and the US and Britain arming, helping to sink the European economy and manipulate them into going to war against Russia again. Um, and I cannot be on the side of the West, and I cannot sit on the fence, just like I couldn't in World War II sit on the fence. Even though I agree, it's not the Soviet Union; it's a capitalist Russia. But then again, as Comrade Stalin said, you support a country if it's anti-imperialist, even if this is a monarchy, even if within this country it is reactionary, and it's not progressive. If in the global context it acts against imperialism, in the bigger picture it is still playing a progressive role, and it should be supported. He made this clear. So because I believe Russia is not imperialist and it plays an anti-imperialist role, I still support it with all the criticisms I might have about it being capitalist, about the Wagner group and liberal ideas that seep in and privatizations. I think that there's still reason that communists should support Russia. I wouldn't give up on them yet.
Okay, so I would like to precise that, in my opinion, Putin, he is not nationalist. In my opinion, Putin, he is a patriot of the Russian Federation. Russian Federation, which there are 150 nations. And it is why it is possible that Putin he have an alliance with Ramzan Kadyrov, for example. They are not from one nation, but they are citizens of the Russian Federation, and the Russian and Chechen together they want to be that the Russian Federation is strong. So it is position of Putin. And but my fear is that there are the guy in Russian Federation which are against Putin, which are in the Russian far right, which try to not be they are against the state like a federation. They want to create the Russian nation state with ethnic nationalism against all the minorities. And some of these they are very ugly guys. Fortunately, they are minority, but because of the situation in the Eastern Front, where very often the Russian army doing not good, they are lose the battle in the Kharkov. They didn't defend it Kherson, and now in the battle in Bakhmut and the Soledar, it's not the Russian army, but the Wagner groups, which shown that they are more efficacious than the Russian army. And the position of Prigozhin and the guys who collaborate with him are it's growing, and it is dangerous. I think, but it is. I trust that Putin he is experienced guy, and when the situation will be needed, he know how to isolate some political opponents.
Can I just
He
say something about
Yeah.
that? About the Prigozhin and the role of Wagner? I've heard totally different things. It's funny because in the war, the whole smoke of war, fog of war, they call it. It really depends what sources you listen to. You hear one thing or another. I heard that it was mainly Wagner, for example, in Bakhmut until recently, and only recently the Russian army is stepping in to add forces to Bakhmut to try to take it, and that there's, in a sense, there's this kind of idea that Wagner didn't succeed, and that Prigozhin is having to try to compensate for not having taken Bakhmut and make it look, not lose face and make it look like they couldn't do it by themselves, so the Russian army has to come and help them. You know, uh, I mean, obviously these are two completely different organizations. The Wagner group is very small compared to the Russian army, and the type of fighting that they can do is very different. And Russia cannot rely on something like Wagner for for a war. It's a supporting part to the military, and maybe they're useful in isolated small conflicts. But I heard that they're trying to integrate it with the Russian army so they can fight together, because it's not even enough to take Bakhmut, which, yes, it's been very defended by Ukraine, and they built up the defenses over 8 years. It's very, very well defended, and they say it's coming to an end soon. I've heard that Bakhmut will fall soon, with Soledar, and again the retreat in the south some months ago. The Russian losses, they were more like retreats. They didn't suffer heavy losses when they lost they lost the territory, but they didn't lose many fighters. It was a more like strategic retreat, and I don't know enough. I hear from both sides. I hear from one side saying that, okay, they just lost because they're making mistakes, they're not well organized, whatever reasons they're losing. And then I hear others saying, no, this just makes military sense because they had some troops, for example, on the western side of the Dnieper River, and these troops were under threat of being isolated and cut off by the river if there was a Ukrainian offensive. And these were paratroopers, which are very highly trained, troops, and um, it just made military sense to pull them to the other side of the river and to leave that ground to Ukraine. Uh, I, I don't question these small decisions. Like a friend of mine says, if you look at the map, Ukraine keeps getting smaller. So uh, it's quite obvious to me that Russia is winning. They have the four regions. If you look at the change in territory from the start until now, the territory that is under control, and if you look at the daily situation of the Ukrainian economy, the Ukrainian army, the fact that NATO, against the will of countries like Germany, they're starting to send more and more tanks. I mean, this is a sign that they're losing big time. Otherwise, if they weren't losing so badly, Scholz, and all the European leaders wouldn't have their arms twisted so hard to send and escalate more. So I think it's evolving into, maybe we'll see some kind of Molotov-Ribbentrop and some kind of ceasefire happening at some point. I don't know. But even if that happened, I think it would just be a pause and a respite, just like the Molotov-Ribbentrop pact was back in World War II. And then they would just be preparing to go on the offensive again, and it's NATO against Russia. I don't see how it can not be a war between NATO and Russia. It already is, and I don't think it's going to stop. But I do think that the Russians have the advantage, and compared to World War II, I would say that they are in a stronger situation now. They have China by their side. All these other countries, they're not as isolated as they were, as the Soviet Union was back in the day. Besides, because Russia is not communist, because the imperialists don't all agree and see Russia as a communist threat now, because Russia is, Putin. I think Putin is like a classic liberal. He defends classic liberal values in his speeches, and he appeals to classic liberals in the West, not neoliberals, but the classic liberals, the ones who, you know, believe in the good old free market and free speech and freedom of the press and all these things. They look at Biden and Trudeau and the governments, suppressing Russian media and all these different voices in their own countries, and then they listen to Putin and they say, "Hang on, well, actually, what Putin says is not so bad," and it's managing to divide opinion in the West a lot. I think having this Russia now, as opposed to a clearly communist country, where it's easy for all the capitalists and anyone who is against communism, they could all unite in the past against the Soviet Union. They had a clear enemy, but now some similarities to World War One, perhaps more than World War Two.
Okay,
What do you think?
because you lived in Poland, I have one question for you. Have you heard about Zastaw Spiski? You have
Yeah,
never heard. I will explain. It's not. Nobody heard about this, but I will explain what is this. Unfortunately, there are no traduction in England. Maybe I will traduce here very quickly. Um, so. Mm, oh no, it's not. It's not good traduction. The history is like this: that in 1410 there was a war between Poland and the Teutonic Order, and Poland won this war. And after, when Poland won the war with Teutonic Order, Polish king he have a lot of money. The king of the Hungary he needed a money, so they make a deal that the king of Poland give a money for the king of Hungary, and the king of Hungary sign a paper that if he don't give back this money in time, the Poland will take some cities which were in the border of Poland in Hungary. These cities now are in Slovakia because it was a part. There was the biggest city is Pisz, so it is Zastaw Spiski. That it's so Poland by this way that they gave money and didn't which the Hungary didn't give back, take 18 cities, and it was a part of Poland until the partition in 18th century. So it was the part of Poland more than 300 years. Why I am telling this story? Because now everybody are trying to explain why Poland give all this support to Ukraine, why they send money to Ukraine, why they send weapon to the Ukraine, the tanks, the army, the all the things to support Ukraine. What are the Polish government are stupid? Are they are not capitalist? Because every capitalist government thinks about profit, and from the normal perspective, you can understand why Poland support Ukraine. But if you remember this example from the past, that Poland gave money and in reward they take some land, now it has some sense. So maybe Poland send all this money to Zelensky only in one reason, because in reward they want to take some land from Ukraine in the western part of Ukraine. What do you think about this?
I think yeah, this is a historical example. I often use the Piłsudski's ambition of going back to Polish territories, like in the time of the Polish-Lithuania Commonwealth, the golden era of Poland, from the sea to the sea. And after 1918, Poland, with the backing of Britain, France, and the USA, and together with the White Army, they fought the Soviets in the Polish-Soviet War, and they occupied part of Belarus, what is now Belarus, and Ukraine, um, and Lithuania, and they occupied this until the start of World War II. When the Soviets came in after the Nazis, a few weeks after the Nazis invaded, then Soviets came in, then the division of Poland and so on. But these territories in the east, which Soviet Union took back, they were not Polish until they were taken by Poland after World War One, with the help of the West. The I think that in some way the new Poland after 1918 is something a bit like Israel, that could not really exist without the West. It's I don't see, and they will continue to do what the US wants. And I don't know. You said that they're not clever capitalists. What is in it for them? I don't know. I don't know what is in it for them. Personal benefits, I imagine. Their careers, I imagine, because as long as they keep doing what the US wants, I guess they are safe in their careers to some extent. And also maybe they hope that they believe that the US will ultimately be the winner, and that their names will go down in history as doing well for Poland. And if they do what the US wants, maybe the US will allow them to take parts of Ukraine or Slovakia, like you just said, and previous historical Polish territories. Maybe they think that in this crisis now and this war with Russia, it's another opportunity to expand Poland, uh, like they thought in the past. And Piłsudski made the same mistake. He Polish military did joint exercises with the German one, in the 30s. I mean, they had good relations with Germany, bad relations with Soviet Union, but good relations with Germany up until literally, 1939. So, um, Poland was the first nation to sign a non-aggression pact with Hitler in 1934. Yeah, and this was, I guess, in the Polish ambition, it was okay if we are friendly with our stronger neighbor to the west, we can take part of, we can take from these savages that we hate in the east, these Russians. Polish nationalism, I think, since 1918 is somehow defines, it's like anti-Russian. It's it's inseparable from Russophobia, if you like. I haven't seen any vision of, any Polish nationalists who are, who maybe there are some, but I don't know of sort of maybe, I don't know, pan-Slavic Poles who think of themselves as being aligned with the East, even though I point out that Polish culture, from when they wake up in the morning until they go to sleep at night, the life of a Pole and a Russian are much more similar than a Pole and an Italian or a French or English or Spanish or anyone from the West, because you drink tea with lemon, you know, you have vodka, you eat, you have fatty soups and cabbage and a lot of pickled things in jars and everything. The kitchen, the house, the life is like in Russia. And I heard that you can drive from Warsaw to Moscow, and even the roads and the road signs don't really change. So it looks the same. Whereas you go west and everything is different. I sometimes joke about it like the coffee nations and the tea nations. You've got some kind of line that divides East and West, and it's where tea is predominant or where coffee is predominant. And there are a few exceptions, but it basically makes that dividing line. And Poland, to me, is clearly on the eastern side in this dividing line culturally, and in many ways. But they see themselves. I don't mean they as in every Pole, but the Polish state and the ideas that it promotes for the Polish people. It's trying to make them, westernized, and to reject what comes from the East, which is their own historical identity. It's their own legacy. It's who they are. So it's very sad. But I honestly, I have no idea what the future holds for Poland. This is what I can say. They might have these ambitions, like you say. I don't know where it's going.
And there is some joke about this lemon with citron, that in the time of Gomułka, the in Spain, we can say in your country, there was a dictator of Franco, and the economic policy of Gomułka was to be maximum autarkic economy. And if we trade with another countries, we need to trade only with socialist countries. So in the discussion in the Politburo, Gomułka said that now we need to finish with import lemon from Spain, because Spain is the fascist country. And he said and that wait, and he said there was some discussion about this lemon from Spain, and there was an argument that yes, lemon is a big source of vitamin C. So Gomułka said, yes, but in cabbage we also have vitamin C. So somebody said, okay, so now we will drink the tea with the cabbage. and they say, okay, we will make exception and we will import lemon because it is impossible to produce lemon in Poland. But there is a question from chat. Have you heard about Graham Phillips and sanction imposed upon him by the UK government?
Yes, I have. That was a while back. I think that was last year. So I think this happened months ago. But yeah, I did hear about it at the time. Yeah. So he's been in Donbass for years now, I believe. And there's another guy, Patrick Lancaster, who does journalism there as well. They're both useful sources to find out about things that are happening on the ground, sort of they film and meeting people, different places. Uh, Graham Phillips does a bit more day to day things, average, citizens, and Patrick Lancaster gets the helmet and goes in the trenches a bit. But yeah, both are good independent journalists, and I'm not surprised that they sanction him. There was the story of this German journalist, German girl who also got in trouble. The German state basically, I think she's not going back to Germany anytime soon, um, and it will happen to others, as well. But there's a war going on, so this is all to be expected.
Have you ever come across the term Latin civilization, in Polish cywilizacja łacińska? Here it often appears in the party's political programs. We are based on the foundation of the Latin civilization.
No, I don't know what that
No,
refers.
it's from, I think that it is from 16th or 17th century when Poland have a lot of wars with the Orthodox Russia and with the Islamic Turkey. So
Yeah,
so they say that we are the how to say przedmurze chrześcijaństwa, that we are the fortress of the Christianity, that we are the shield which protect Europe from all these barbaric forces, and we are the Latin civilization. Very often they use this, especially the far right in Poland. They defend some Latin civilization, but nobody in the Western countries care about the Latin civilization. In because the Western countries have alliance not based in the civilizational question, but the alliance with Japan or with the some I don't know,
yeah,
Qatar, Saudi Arabia. It's nothing
yeah,
to
yeah,
do with the civilization. If they need, they use these civilizational arguments like today against Russia. They say, yes, we are European and we are together against these barbaric Russians. But if they will need Russia against China, or I don't know if you heard about this story about the burning Quran in Sweden and
yeah,
another Nordic countries. If there, because now Erdogan he is angry, there are some protests in Muslim countries, and if there will be the wave of the Islamic terrorism like in 2015 in France, maybe they will ask Putin to help us with these bad Muslims, and everything can change very very quickly. But it's this story with Quran shown what NATO is the bullshit that you if you want to break up NATO, you burn some books and that's all. And
yeah, yeah. And then Turkey says, "Well, it looks like we have no choice. Sorry, but we're going to veto you joining NATO. we were going to let you in, but yeah, you went over the line in the last moment. You just had to wait. You just had to wait a little bit longer without burning a Quran, but you just couldn't help yourself. So you couldn't stop. It's funny. But going back to this Latin idea,
But
I
wait,
guess
wait,
it's
wait,
part.
wait, wait. The
Yeah,
foreign minister of Finland, he said that it was Russian provocation.
yeah. No, I was going to say I hadn't heard of this, but I was going to tell you maybe a Russian burned this Quran because it's just perfect. It's the timing.
Yeah, no, but it was
Um,
the real guy from the real far right party from
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Denmark, I
yeah.
suppose.
Did you hear about in Spain the letter bombs? Did you
No.
hear this story? So, like Pedro Sanchez and different parliamentarians, like some MPs in Spain, they got letters with explosives in the mail, and so there were, I think, six in total went out, like high-profile people, and it all was on the news. And the last one was to the American embassy in Spain, right? And so all the headlines were saying, "This is Russia, of course." Right, Russia sending letters with explosives to all these people in Spain for some reason, and then they on the Sexta TV channel, like mainstream Spanish TV, they have the journalists and the cameras live in the investigation, and they arrest one old Spanish guy, 74 years old, who used to work in the council in Vitoria in the Basque country, and the police who's doing the investigation is saying on the national TV, "Yep, we have no link whatsoever to any kind of terrorist group, political affiliation, other country. It seems like it's just this old man. We still don't understand what his reasons were, but you know, his heart rate went down after the after the police was there. He's now drinking a cup of tea and calming down. It's okay." So it's it's one of those funny stories, to just show how they jump on the bandwagon so quickly of anti-Russia, and then it turns out like with Nord Stream, right? Um, that was
Yeah,
another one.
but Nord Stream is something serious. Could you
Yes, yes,
say
this is not going to go away.
Could you say something about the law which was voted in Spain that now every guy can say that I think that I am woman, so give me a paper for the woman. So that they voted this self ID law.
Um, what I can say, I talk to people about the trans question and so on, and what I can say is that the right wing in Spain is benefiting so much from all this. Um, I think that they're winning a lot of votes, a lot of support from people who, understandably see these things coming from the left, and they look for anyone who's denouncing this as wrong, and of course, then they find Vox, and this is a problem and a challenge because, of course, they're going to have to learn from experience that Vox is also not any kind of solution, that they're not real patriots. It's just all the same shit. And the left in Spain, the left in Spain is very innocent, because whilst other countries have had many years of social democracy to become disillusioned with it and understand that it goes nowhere. In Spain, we had 40 years of Franco, and then there was this big excitement in the 70s, a big, social um, boom, very liberal. And it's only now starting to dawn on people that the transition was a lie, that bourgeois democracy is a load of crap, but they're having to learn these lessons later. So this these divisive, I don't know what to call it, synthetic left woke policies and ideas, which are now coming in strong into Spain, especially aiming at the youth, they are actually spreading quite successfully because there isn't much resistance. There's a very innocent, naive left that hears things that sound progressive. They oppose the right, so they follow it. So Spain is very divided on these questions. right and left, and I don't see much of a third point of view, much of an alternative um, to these two extremes, if you like, in Spain. And the party, the government right now is this coalition, PSOE, Podemos, Izquierda Unida, and I hope, when I talk to people, I tell them that, look, left-wing people, if I talk to left-wing people who support this government, I tell them that, look, you can't use the excuse anymore that your guys are not in power. They are in power. So what are you know, whatever you want, they're not doing it. They're not solving anything. Now is the time that they should be doing it. They're not doing it. You, you know, it's not like they're in opposition and the right wing is governing. Now is the time, and they're not doing it. So learn your lesson, please. But it's going to take time. Yeah, this is what I can say about that.
Yeah, but I would like to return to beginning of our conversation, and you say something like this, that everything which is bad for the West and the Russian army is bad for the West is good. So, and I am agree with this. So we can ask question, if these transgender things, which is objectively bad for the West, that you can't have normal society with normal economy, normal relations, when you have this woke hysteria and all this stupid question which need provoke very quickly very very strong problems, or even something like civil war between, in one side, I don't know, if we watching the situation in United States, that some people who support Trump, who lived in the middle of the USA, and some woke guy who vote for the Biden, who say about this all this transgender bullshit, the hatred between one and another is so big that if they are in one room they will fight, and it's good. And it's good because when if we have the new civil war in United States, all the war in the world will be stopped, because all these is soldiers from America will need come back. So maybe from tactical reason we need to support these idiots. What do you think?
Yes, we can support them publicly, like tell everyone else, yes, yes, do this, and then at home we do it very differently. No, um, the the thing is, I think it all goes hand in hand, because you have a country like Russia, for example, right? We yes, we want the Western society to be divided. It's very good. If Western society, if the US, if everyone would be harmonious and united and everyone agreeing that the only thing that is wrong in the world is Russia, this is going to be bad for the world. But if they are arguing over trans and all these things, and they are really polarized and on the brink of civil war, yeah, it's much harder for them to. It's much harder for imperialism to engage in a serious war, and it's much more likely that imperialism will collapse in on itself. So yes, we welcome it, but at the same time, if we have to be careful, because if we try to convince the if you look at Western society, the ones who are with the Ukraine flag on Twitter, they nearly always have an LGBT flag. It's
Yes,
like the
yes.
two go together. If you meet a Western person who's pro-Trump, maybe more petty bourgeois, more conservative minded, and so on, who is opposed to the LGBT, it's much more likely that if they are not supportive of Putin or Russia, at least they are not so hostile. They don't want to war with them. They are much more okay, let's think about ourselves and what about our economy, da da da. Yeah, the Tucker Carlson voice, let's say. And so we need to be careful, because if we are, these things have been connected for us. All these questions, they've been linked. Capital is linking all these questions for us. We don't need to link ourselves. If we tell people that it's good to change your gender as many times as you want, and we don't need to make families and babies and all these things, uh, we're also saying, okay, therefore Russia is a transphobic country, and their way of doing things is wrong and it's oppressive. So we should support NATO in its quest to make the whole of the world one big rainbow. Yeah, and stop all this conservative uh, nonsense, which is coming from Russia, from Iran, from Venezuela, from, guess what? It's now the socialist countries, which, or the previously socialist countries, which are better protecting those traditional values, both of family and gender, but also cultural heritage, right? And they're not um, going for this cosmopolitan Western homogenous society that just, all you have is multinational chains and there's no national character anymore, and you lose touch with your culture. This is, to me, for me, it all goes together. So I would link the questions and say, look, in the West, I would say, explain why these woke questions are not in working class interest, why they are not right, and we should not be spreading this, or giving it more weight than capital is giving it already. We should, on the contrary, we should be pushing back against it. And then looking at Russia, haha, guess what? They are helping us push back against this, because they are not only resisting it themselves, but they are stretching a hand and helping other countries to resist it as well, because it's this global international capital that is, homogenizing things and spreading these rainbows and all this culture everywhere. And So to me, it goes hand in hand with imperialism. So I think we should clearly, in the West, we should have a very clear line to oppose these things, and to tell the truth to the working class. It's in their interest to oppose both the rainbow flag and the Ukrainian flag at this time.
I will read some comments from chat, but also I would like to say something. So there are some questions for you. Firstly, how strong is fashion is in Spain nowadays? Second, hello, comrades. Like you started talking about Spain, are there any news about Pablo Hasél? And there is also very good points being made by Max right now, and both are worse. Stalin. Yes, but wait. I would like to say something that the recent year learned me something. Learned me something that all my politics in all my life was wrong, because before always I was against something, but now I think that in Western country, if you are against something, you need to support this. For example, we have this Banderist question in Ukraine. That all these Western countries who support Banderist in Ukraine, they in real life they destroy Banderist, because what they do, firstly, they push all these far right nationalists to Bakhmut, and they don't come back from Bakhmut, or if they come back, they are not scary for anybody. Uh, they provoke a lot of wave of emigration, and people who go out from Ukraine, especially today when there are danger that they will be called back from Poland, from Germany, from France to fight for Zelensky. So they don't want to come back to Ukraine. So they try to take the Polish passport, German passport, French passport to be no longer a citizen of Ukraine. So when the European Union support Ukrainian nationalism, they destroy Ukrainian nationalism. They destroyed physically because most of these people died, but also when they push these guys for the emigration, they families, they children or grandchildren, they will be no longer the nationalist, Ukrainian nationalist, because they will integrate with the Western societies. And it is the most effective way for destroying the Banderist nationalism, this politics which they do.
I agree. But if you look at World War II, the USA and Britain they were no less morally reprehensible than the Nazis. Yeah, they did crimes and atrocities just as bad. In fact, they're responsible for World War II and the Holocaust and everything that happened as well, more than Germany. They're more responsible than Germany. Just like right now, it's very obvious that the USA is more responsible than Germany, because you see how Germany has no political sovereignty. In fact, Europe, the EU, has. You can see it's just doing what is in the US interest. So you really have to put the blame on the USA, on who is the biggest player in the room. They are the ones calling the shots. And just like in World War II, did they care about what happened to the Nazis? What happened to Germany? No, they let this happen. After the war, of course, then these Nazis are useful. Then the CIA starts recruiting them, and saying, "Look, you Nazis are not very popular right now, so you can be exposed, and you can suffer, or you can work for us." And they recruit tons of them. They operate in Ukraine, in Poland, all over Eastern Europe during the Cold War. And of course, the same will happen now. Ukrainians, Banderites who are leaving Ukraine, uh, maybe some will go and find a life quietly in the forest somewhere and not disturb anyone. But I'm sure that lots of them will become somehow agents of the West. Either intelligence or activists, or in many ways they will contribute to the struggle against Russia and what they believe in Europe. You know, um, so yeah, so some will end up in the front line, and some will end up helping in the factory, and some will help on social media from Poland or somewhere. Uh,
Yeah,
and the West doesn't care about them.
but
It's just a tool.
when I think about this question about the position of Germany, I don't know if I am agree that Germany is a victim of the United States, that it's only United States who push the Western countries, and because in reality, when we think about what's happened now in Eastern Europe, that Slavic Ukrainians kill Slavic Russians, that maybe in next months there will be also Slavic Belarusian and Slavic Poles. So we will have big war, and only the Slavic nation will die in this war. It was a program of this extermination of Slavic nation. It was already written in 1930s in Third Reich. It was this program, but it was not realized because Slavic nations were together against Germany. Now they are more clever and say, oh, to destroy Slavic nation, maybe we will organize war between them, and we will play that we are innocent. We didn't want to send you this leopard. We will push by the Prime Minister Morawiecki and USA. It is not our fault. We are for peace, and we are the peaceful Europe. But maybe it is only a game. But and they are very happy that in Eastern Europe everybody, many people will die, because in practice, who will control this Eastern Europe after the war? Already 100 years ago, it was the big
BlackRock.
plan. Maybe BlackRock or maybe Germany. This all integration of Europe. It is expanding of the German economy, uh, and the destruction of Eastern Europe. It could be also be expansion of German economy. So I'm not sure about the role of Germany.
What I agree. Maybe I'm a bit quick to rule out the, to what level the nations of Europe can say no to the US, and how much independence they have, and how much influence over what happens in Europe they have. Maybe I underplay it, but if I look back at World War II, if we go back there, I just look at the facts, and when I try to put it together, I get this picture that Europe has actually lost sovereignty a long time ago. After World War One, the Versailles Treaty, Germany has no army, no navy. It's lost its industrial region. Its economy is crushed. Uh, you know, this Germany. Um, Later we see with if we skip from after World War One to World War Two, yes, we see the Third Reich. We see an empowered Germany fighting a war against the Soviet Union with its own expansionist ideas, and so on. We see an ambitious Germany, but um, to me, it's clear that without the US wanting this to happen, and Britain and France, it would not happen. They were the main powers in the world back then. Germany was not. Germany had lost. It was crushed. A country without an army, it cannot. It's not a sovereign country. Yes. So they, when they gave Germany back the Ruhr, when they invest tons of capital to Germany to build those planes and those tanks and those roads and that war economy for Germany, when they start to give Germany license to take other countries, Czechoslovakia, Austria, and so on, and they basically enable the Third Reich. It's like they traded off with Germany. Said, look, Germany, we want you to fight the USSR, and we understand you have your own interests. You want da da da. So, okay, we'll work together. We'll give you this and this, and you do what we. But ultimately, it's the Americans have the plan, and they're calling the shots. And the proof is in the pudding. You look at what happened. They used Germany. This war was not in Germany's interests, because Germany loses, it gets divided. They take advantage. Then so you have a
Yeah,
Germany
but wait,
that
wait,
is.
wait, 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 wait. Because the war is not finished, and we will not know the future. Uh, but if we think about the last years of the relations in European Union between Poland and Germany, this relation are very, very complicated. Germany wanted to push European Union to build the one European army, to push all the countries in European Union to be in a eurozone, and all these plans to build one European superstate controlled by Germans were destroyed by the Polish government, Hungary government, and maybe a few others government. But Poland were every time were against all these all these ideas of German government. So now Germany, they are waiting for the realization of this program of Putin, who in the first day of war he promised demilitarization of Ukraine, but he made not only demilitarization of Ukraine, he made a demilitarization of all Eastern Europe, especially Poland. Poland now is totally demilitarized. Poland already give more than half the Polish tanks to Ukraine, and it's not finished. They will give more and more and more and more, and I don't think that Olaf Scholz and all these guys that they are idiots. I think that they are playing some game and say, yes, we are against this war, but they want to give something to continue this demilitarization, because they know that every month of this war they make the Eastern Europe weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker, and there will be time. There is very often the people when they talk about the Second World War and the Lend-Lease, how the Western countries, England and USA, supporting military Soviet Union, they forget one thing, that after war they were the first who attacked Soviet Union. All these Western countries who support Ukraine and maybe Eastern Europe today, they will be first to betray the Eastern Europe when the Russia when the war will stop. And in reality, it is not possible to destroy Russia. It is not possible. But something is possible. It's possible that 1 or 2 years after this war, the European Union will change. The European Union will be united with one army, with one government, and no longer a situation that the guy who was elected in Warsaw stopped some decision making in Brussels or in Berlin. It will be the real consequence of this war, and of course, totally destruction of Ukraine.
I don't have a crystal ball, but so I don't know if it will look like that or if it will fracture. But you've pointed to Poland and Germany and the complicated issues between them, and between other NATO countries and European Union countries as well. Hungary, obviously, Italy has some of its. There's been problems since since COVID. There have been loads of tensions and problems between EU countries that they each have their own interest, and they can each do things which strengthen their position or weaken their position internationally. But ultimately, the US at the other side of the ocean stands to gain from their differences and their conflicts. The US can play them against each other. It can tell the Poles that, look, we support you against Germany. Let's work together. We can pressure Germany together. If you are very hawkish against Ukraine, we'll support your ambitions to expand Poland, and we won't let Germany get in the way. They can say whatever they want to anyone. They can promise, and then they can betray, like they always do. It doesn't. They don't. if you take the game where they all act in their own self-interest, then it is the most powerful player, the USA, that decides ultimately, because they have the key to what happens. If they want to stop what is happening and change the direction, they can make it happen, and no individual leader is going to get in the way. And vice versa. If they want this to go further and to keep escalating, no individual leader is going to get in their way. Like you see Olaf Scholz, complaining, "Oh, we don't want to send the Leopard tanks. Oh, you need to send the Abrams tanks. Uh, we're not going to do it." And then, you know, they call him up that night. They say, "Are you on crack? What's wrong with you? Are you stupid?" "Oh, sorry, sorry." Next day, "Yes, yes, we send the leopards." You know, the, I sorry, but it's going to be very hard to convince me that European countries and even Germany really has its a kind of a sovereign plan. That somehow this is going, as the German elites are planning. Despite what the USA wants. No, I think that there will be outcomes that are in German interests, but this will be, a consequence of the agreements between USA and Germany. So it will ultimately be in the US's interest always, and maybe sometimes by coincidence also in Germany's interest. But the Nord Stream, this Nord Stream pipeline being blown up, right, which we know was Britain and the US and so on. Uh, when Germany conducted the investigation and then said, we found out who it was, but we can't say it for national security reasons, right? I mean, doesn't that say it all?
Yes, yes,
This is
but okay, with this Nord Stream, I can respond that all the infrastructure to pump gas is already created. They created all these pipelines to take the gas from the Siberia to Baltic, and the Nord Stream exists. We need only to rebuild this. But there is one problem that today, with Putin, which is strong, we need to pay him a lot of money. If we destroy Russia and put in the Kremlin somebody like Navalny, and the gas will be much more cheaper. So we will continue the trade with Russia, but in the another condition. The same thing which they make with Yeltsin. That now
yeah,
we'll have some puppet in Russia. But we will see. We will
and
see
maybe
what
Germany
will be
goes
the
along.
future.
Maybe Germany goes along with this because they believe that. Maybe the German leadership truly actually believe that they can get another Yeltsin, and that somehow Germany will end up benefiting from doing what the US orders them to do. Um, but Germany is occupied by the US, same as Poland. Uh, you know, I they I'm sure that they sell it nicely to the Germans, but I don't believe that there's sovereignty in Germany, that the German elite can make its own geopolitical choices freely. Remember that Merkel's phone was spiked. They have microphones and cameras, and they Biden sits in the EU in the high EU meetings. It's I don't believe in this independence. Uh, you can try to
Okay,
convince
okay,
me. I'm happy to hear
okay. We
it.
will
But
we will see what will be the future of this, but the last 70 years shown for me that the German imperialism is mm, very efficacious without army, and they are hiding in the military umbrella of USA, and they are using this military umbrella of the USA to expand their economy, to make more bigger position in Europe, united Europe in the way like they wanted to united, and and you know, you we can't we the geographic is something we can't change. The resources of gas in Russia and big industrial possibilities in Europe, in Germany, it is something which needs to be connected. Maybe not connected
Yeah,
in the time when the Putin is strong, but sooner or later it will be connected. And even if United States, they will create now something, they unite Baltic state with Poland, with Ukraine, and they create something to stop it for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. it there will be time when the economic relations are much more mm, powerful than this.
in this I agree with you. I agree with you. The reality on the ground, the geography, this will overcome all in the long run, and it takes a huge effort. It's a very big effort and cost from Western imperialism to keep Germany, to keep Europe, divided from from its ideal natural trading partner, Russia. But um, yeah,
Because
we'll
listen,
see.
listen. I can agree with you if we had this conversation in March last year, and in this time everybody talked that the Russian economy will collapse, and I also thought that it will collapse, but it didn't collapse. And it didn't collapse because nobody in Europe wants to make cut the economic ties with Russia. There are a lot of sources, articles which say how all the time Western countries are trading with Russia, but it is in a more complicated way. But they are trading. Even Poland trade with Russia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Even Ukraine
yeah,
trade
yeah.
with Russia. They all
It's
that
true. It's true. It's true.
they
Yeah.
didn't stop this gas from Russia.
Yes.
So it's some all kind of theater and
Yes, but we should be careful with this because whilst it's true that the Europeans cannot just stop trading because they still need those resources, which they get from Russia, they can't just suddenly stop. Um, with all of the sanctions and them trying to find ways around and so on, the Russians are looking at it and saying, well, this is not how we like to do business. This is not very reliable. I cannot trust that this is stable and I'm going to be able to, sell this to you next year at this price. And then you've got China and India and other countries who would very much like to get their hands on these commodities at these competitive prices. So Russia is increasing its trade volume with China by orders of magnitude recently in the last years, and I would be worried that even though yes, European countries need to keep, it's in their interest to keep buying this from Russia, however they can, it might not be possible in the long term as they slowly start switching and getting more gas from the USA and Russia starts selling more to China. There will come a point where um, Russia will have found the market for its goods, an alternative market for its good. And if Europe then wants to increase its trade with Russia again in these commodities, it won't be able to find the supply, um, potentially. But this is happening in the context of a war as well. So that adds another dimension to it. Would Russia even, because when I think about what's in Russia's interest, it's like if Europe is going to use the energy that you sell them to build planes and tanks to come and kill you, why would you want to keep selling it to them if you have someone else you can sell it to who's on your side? It just doesn't make much sense, right? So I think that this is a transition process which is happening that is going to make the European situation worse and worse. And it's especially hurting Germany, which is the industrial center of Europe. And of course, the higher price that they have to pay for energy is going to make everything they produce more expensive and less competitive. So if they were already struggling to compete with China and other countries, India and so on, with produced goods, it's going to get even worse. Um, so, as an industrial, I think Germany's industrial status is going to be threatened by this, which is more reason why I don't believe in this German sovereignty, and I'm waiting to be proved wrong. I would love to not just hear some voices from some German key figures who are denouncing what's happening, but to see like real political, resistance and change in Germany. I'm waiting to see when this is going to come about, but it's not. So it seems to me like the US has a very tight grip on German politics.
I don't believe that the German sovereignty is possible. German is too little to be sovereign state, but I believe that unification Europe by the Germany could be sovereign state. European Union in last years shown that it is organization in crisis. In crisis, the COVID shown that it is in crisis, Brexit shown that it is in crisis, and I don't know, last 10 years of European Union was showing that this organization are in the permanent crisis without any strategy what to do next. And there are some discussion in Marxist movement about why the Marxists are against terrorist activity. And some arguments are like this, that maybe in terrorist activity we will kill some prime minister or some president or some king or some tsar, and in the one day we will be happy with this. But uh, it's always provoked that the states become stronger. It became stronger in Russia after the terrorist activities. It became stronger in USA after 11 September. And in many examples in France after 2015, that terrorist attacks are a very good pretext to build a strong police state and crush all the political opposition. I
6th of
think
January, no, in the US, the
what?
capital thing in the US, the 6th of January last year. Was it?
I don't think so that it make it is something different, uh,
Okay.
but uh, but the 11 the 11 September shown that the all this Patriot Act make possible for the American government to to um, to build totalitarian state in USA. All these things which Snowden say about the USA, that now the USA, they are hearing everybody, and it is because it was possible after 11th of September. Uh, and this war is very important for the future of European Union. There is two possibilities. First, European Union will cease to exist. It will be finished of European Union. And second possibility, that German will use this situation to build, to unite, to make unification of Europe, and but it will be something different, which was in the last 15 years. Now it will be more centralized. It will be more centralized and more efficacious in this, because European Union is not active in the foreign policy. And when there is the question of war in Ukraine, it is United States and Russia who talked. Europe don't talk, are not invited to conversation. But we will see. We will see what. There are some questions for you. Maybe
Yeah,
you will comment this question, and we can
I was thinking, yeah, I
talk
can go through
about
the chat
this. Yes, yes. So
if that's okay.
firstly, maybe say something about Pablo Hassel. You know
Yeah,
the
hang on.
guy?
I've got one a little bit earlier on from Yotazet
You
one.
just
It's
said
how strong is fascism in Spain nowadays?
yes.
Um, so yeah, I don't have any numbers in front of me, but it's not a political force. There's no political party I would say is fascist, but I have seen videos of like Torchlit marches in Spain. So I would say that it's growing, and the current situation, crisis, the war in Ukraine, the let's call it the extreme woke of the left, is, all these, the conditions are ripe for it to grow more and more. So I would say it's small but on the rise. um, and yeah, yeah, I don't want to say
It is
too much about
rising because of woke hysteria. More woke
woke
hysteria,
hysteria.
more fascism.
Exactly, it's the biggest, and it's really the other side of the same coin. I think it's the wokeness is almost like is becoming a bit like fascism
Yes,
from the left.
they are together to supporting Azov battalion. But no,
Yeah,
no, no.
exactly.
Very often the fascists are now more intelligent than the woke. Some fascists are
Yes.
against against supporting Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to, I've spoken to fascists, Spanish fascists and Polish fascists, and this. It's funny what you can find in the Telegram, the deep web of Telegram channels. But often with these people, you can find some common ground, and it's, yeah, I
Yes,
find
yes,
it
yes.
more
In
interesting
my
than to talk
Polish
about.
channel, I invited a lot of guys like this in recent weeks. For example, I talked with Aleksander Jabłonowski, uh, strange guy who is now in prison. But I am agree with him in the Ukrainian question. But he is a controversial politician. Okay, Pablo Hassel.
There's one more thing I would point out, which is that in the past, in the 30s, when the Spanish Second Republic, uh, they the liberals, the liberal bourgeoisie, um, aligned itself with the communists through the Popular Front, and this government actually was aligned with the Soviet Union at the time. It was the only country supporting the Spanish Republic, and the fascists were like the like the they were supported by the imperialists, yes, Germany, Italy, and then openly Germany, Italy, but indirectly France, Britain, America, basically all the capitalist countries that went against the Soviet Union. They went against the Spanish Republic. They saw it as a threat because it would align itself with the Soviet Union, and this is an interesting thing. And so the fascism and Franco's Spain, contrary to what people think, even though it had a culturally conservative character and maybe helped slow down this Americanization and the entering of Coca-Cola and McDonald's into the country. They let the USA put the first army base in Spain in 1953, and Spain was becoming Americanized even under Franco, and now you have the situation is reversed almost. You have the government which is fully on the NATO side. So from the West, from the imperialists, I don't see there's much point of a coup and changing the Spanish government because it's doing what they want already. So it's interesting because I'm not sure what it would mean to have a threat of fascism in Spain now. I don't know. You know, it would more likely be some kind of grassroots movement of angry people that the ruling elite would call them fascists. They would label them as fascists, but I don't think that there is the grounds for fascism really to take hold in Spain now. Yeah, I just wanted to point this out, that things have changed, and this question is different. There's another one who's asking about Hannah Long, asking about Pablo Hasél. I don't know him personally. I read the news. Probably I know what you know, which is that he went to prison recently, and I haven't been following the situation. But it's a bit strange how I just searched for him and I find a BBC article and they have a photo of him and he looks good in the photo, so he's on a BBC article in the top and they've got him going like this and they haven't tried to make him look evil. So I'm a bit skeptical of this whole thing, and also his his positions in Spain. He was, I think, advocating for Catalan separatism. As far as political line, I don't really agree with Pablo Hasél. Obviously, he should not be in prison, and he's doing a really good job to expose the hypocrisy of the state. How there's no freedom of expression. Some people can say what they want, but some can't. If you have any kind of high visibility or public profile and you say anything that is a bit too radical, you get in trouble in Spain, if your audience is big enough. So it's doing a good job anyway, even if I disagree with
Could you say something more why you are not agree with him?
Well, in the Catalan question, he okay, one thing, he doesn't support like North Korea or countries like this or China. He has a position, even though he's fond of the Soviet Union and Stalin, so he's not a Trotskyist in this sense, but he still has a very how to say, eclectic. He has a very kind of eclectic positions on different countries. So I don't know. I find myself disagreeing with him on some questions, and with the Catalan question, Catalan nationalism is, I think it is bourgeois in character, and I am an advocate for united Spain. Um, I think that it's, as history progresses and the Spanish nation forms from the separate kingdoms, it's reactionary to want to go back and break up this unity into separate kingdoms, because, or separate regions, because in order to do that, you need to foster this idea of nationalism and animosity between regions to justify breaking it up and separating it. So I oppose the Scottish nationalism, Catalan nationalism, Basque nationalism. It's, to me, this is not progressing for the working class. And as far as I know, he does, and he was involved in this process. But yeah, that's it about
Wait. I will
Dublin.
comment this
Yes,
because I am against the separatism in the socialist states. So I am against Tibet separatism, Uyghur separatism, and another separatism which can more make weaken the China popular Chinese People's Republic weaker, and another countries like this. If there are some separatist movement in the socialist state, I am against. But in the same time, I
you are for the
support.
right of them to choose. Yes,
What?
you don't want to see them separate, but you want them to have the right to choose if to separate.
No. In socialist, if there exists socialist state, even if this socialist state make something not good in the national question, I don't care, because the economic situation, economic base for me is more important than some nationalist question. uh, if I think and so, and also the China have very strategic role in the fighting of the global imperialism. So every separatism in China weak the anti-imperialist movement. And in the same position, I support all the separatism in Western countries. I support Catalan movement, Scottish movement, Basque movement, the Galician movement, Corsica movement, Breton movement. All the separatism in the European Union is good, because it's making Europe weaker. It's making I support the separatism of the Latin population of USA, of black population of USA, of I don't know, these Trump supporters or wokers or mafia. I am a supporter of big of
I'm
new
going to
big
twist your
civil
argument now.
war. What?
I'm going to use your argument now. So, if we talk about weakening the West
Yes.
in the context of this separatist movements, what is weakening the West more? Because when I see the separatism in Spain, I see the guys responsible, they have safe refuge in Belgium. I see that Brussels and the EU has an interest in Scottish separatism and Spanish separatist movements. If the regions separate, it doesn't really weaken Western imperialism. Or I think what it does is it weakens the nation politically. Um, it weakens the position of the working class, because it's harder to unite when now suddenly you don't all identify yourselves under the same flag, but you know some are here, some are there. It's much easier to divide and rule this country. And I think that for the what they call the globalist elite, for imperialism, which is above these nations, which is coming from outside, it then becomes harder for Spain to push back, or for Britain to push back, or Germany to push back, and it becomes even easier to direct these countries. Do you see what I'm saying?
From my position, all this Catalan movement make very good job and push the Spain to make repressive policy, which is weakening the European imperialism, because in this all this conversation about the referendum in Crimea, uh, I can make argument that there are some referendum in Crimea which were democratic, and I support the result of this democratic referendum. And there is some referendum in Catalonia which is also democratic, but the European Union and Spain don't respect the the results of the referendum. So this war, West against Russia, it is the war between two organisms that one support the result of the referendum and second don't support the referendum.
In this case, Crimea had a constitutional right to the referendum, but Catalonia didn't. So when we talk about whether it's democratic or not to hold the referendum, it's an interesting question, because if you democratically decide, I'm not saying that it's the case in Spain. It's even more complicated because this was written on the Franco. So, but hypothetically, if a constitution is written which denies the right of secession, if this is done with a democratic process, this constitution, then it opens the question whether it's democratic or not to break the constitution to have a referendum. Yes, and also, where do you stop with the referendums? If Catalonia has a right to secede, then what if a part of Catalonia uh, doesn't agree and votes differently to stay in Spain? Does that mean that then Catalonia, according to democracy, should be broken up? And if you keep breaking it into smaller and smaller chunks, at the end of the day, do I have the right as an individual in Catalonia, just because, let's say I'm the only guy in Catalonia who didn't want to separate, do I have a right to say, okay, well, my house, my flat, and myself, I'm going to remain in as part of Spain? Yes. So it's
Listen.
not so clear
I,
cut.
I, I don't care about Catalonia. If one day you will became a prime minister of Spain, and you will push Spain to make a socialist program, and you will use the resources of Spain to supporting the international communist movement, it will be day that I stopped supporting the Catalonian movement, because now the government of Spain is socialist government. So we now we are against the separatism, because it will weaken this.
Okay, I understand. I understand. But under the current conditions, with the capitalist Spain and all its problems, if it would separate now, it wouldn't weaken NATO. It wouldn't weaken the West and the position of the West in relation to Russia, because everything that is produced in Catalonia, it every every tank, every car tire, it's still going to go, to the war effort against Russia, just as it was before. So it's not like you are. I don't see how it's weakening the position of the West, because it's not Spain which is at war directly with Russia. It's just the Spanish taxpayers, whether it's all in Spain or whether it's Spain and Catalonia, as long as both regions or one region is following NATO, sending the money, sending the weapons, it's contributing in the same way to the war. But if you divide this capitalist Spain, and you want to make a revolution in Spain, so that I can become the president of the socialist Spain, like you said, if I ever want to make this happen, it will be easier with a united Spain and not separated. Do you see the?
My position is when the mm, to very quick present my position, we can think about the history of the Russia. In 19th century, Russia was a country responsible for destroying the revolution in Hungary, and it was the more reactionary state in Europe. It was the prison of nations. So so I am against Tsarist Russia because it is the most reactionary state. And the same
Yeah,
Russia, a few years later, became the most progressive state. It can change very quickly
yeah,
when the same things is the USA now. That the USA now is the most the most reactionary state in the world. But I can imagine situation that one day some communist or Britain, I can imagine situation that some communist movement, some communist or workers party will take power in Britain, and with this everything will change, everything in the world.
sorry, 1 second. I have company. The yeah, I have to find the place. This house is not easy. Okay.
Did you heard what I say about Russia? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, yes, yes. Did
Yes.
you heard?
So yeah, yeah. So I wanted to say about this about Russia. I think we talked about it in the past. When I went to the Piłsudski Museum in Warsaw, I learned about the socialist movement and the split when Piłsudski left the Polish socialists, and it was over this question because they saw Tsarist Russia as reactionary, and before 1905, the Polish socialist movement was pro separatism, Poland separating, seceding from Russia. But after 1905, when they saw that there was a chance, a possibility that Russia will have a revolution, then they changed their position and they said, okay, rather than separating from Russia, we should join the Bolsheviks and fight for a revolution within Russia, including us. And like you say, if you have a socialist country like the Soviet Union, then the nationality is not so important because it plays a background role. But under capitalism, then it becomes important. Then you have the tension and the fights happening. Uh, I would I would say that the reason they wanted Poland to secede from the Russian Empire is they thought this will help them to have the revolution themselves. No? They thought that they have a better chance as independent Poland than as part of Russia. I'm not I'm not convinced that that was right because if after 1905 they changed their position, in other words, after
No, 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 no.
1905,
It was nothing to do with this. In
what do you
19
mean?
in the when the October Revolution was started. They take power only in one big city, only in Petrograd. Few days later, they take power in Moscow. And the Bolsheviks are totally minority in the Russia. So they take some decision which are strategic. For example, we support independence of Poland. It was one of the first decision of the revolutionary government. Why they take this decision? Because many Poles were in the Russian army. Some of these Poles are the officers of the Russian army. So when the Lenin take position, uh, hey, listen, guys, we are supporting your independence. They became a supporter of the Bolshevik government, and in the civil war, which started later, a lot of more than 100,000 Poles, they are fighting to support the Bolsheviks because they know that the Bolshevik government is the guarantee the existing of independent Poland. So you can't you can't in one day make a revolution in all the world. You make
Yes, but the
even
national question is different for Poland than it is for Catalonia and Scotland. You know, Poland was Poland before it was split between Russia and the other empires. Um, the history of how Poland became part of the Russian Empire is it's not that they out of mute. It's not the same as Catalonia or Scotland. No,
okay.
like
I will give you another example. Today, when we look for the U.S. Army, we see that there are a lot of Latin guy. Some of them even don't speak English. Uh, and it is very strategic situation that there are the guy in the US Army which are not English speaking guys, or they have origin from the Latin perspective. And if I am American communist and I will take power in Washington, first thing which I will do, I will speak with some guys in the army from a Latin community and say, listen, guys, take California and some other states and build your own independent state. We will split the United States, and some regions where there are a lot of Hispanic community, you will make independent. So they will support my revolution because they knew that my revolution is the guarantee that they can create their own independent state. Of course, after 1, 2, or 3 years, there will be fight between us. But today we are the allies because our biggest enemy is the Wall Street.
yes, in this case, I would agree that giving California back to Mexico would maybe be a good
No,
thing.
maybe
But
not Mexico, because these guys from
or
they won't create their own and also it's not good
but I don't think that this is I don't think that creating humanity, I think, in the long run, is moving beyond national borders, beyond national separations. Yeah, there's a kind of homogenization. Somehow we need to try and preserve history and culture, whilst at the same time these things. I mean, imperialism is doing it for us, is breaking these walls. Um, to 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 try and put up new walls, I think is inherently reactionary. It's um, this is what the anarchists want. It's
No,
not
no, no,
it's not reactionary because they want it, but
no, no. Okay. Uh, I make
because why?
another. Wait, wait,
How
wait.
do you say
I
it
make
correctly?
another argument. I will make another argument. When we talk about the war in Ukraine today, who is supporting NATO and who is against NATO? Against NATO, there are some communists like us and some crazy nationalists or even fascists. And we have problem because we have to choose. We will be alone, isolate, and we can do nothing, or unite to action to organize some anti-war demonstrations, some meetings with guys which we are not agree, which are dangerous, which are psychopaths. They supporting some crazy fascist ideas, but today they can be our allies against this imperialism and after you can choose you prefer to organize the big demonstrations anti-war like in Czech Republic, where in one street you have the communists and Czech nationalists, and it was very powerful, more than 100,000 people in the Czech streets, or you prefer to be uh, sectarian and make demonstration only with you and member of your party, which maybe there will participate 200 people.
I will say this. If you look at the who supports, like you said, who supports NATO or not in Ukraine, uh, I can tell you, just like I link the LGBT flag with the Ukrainian flag, I also link the Scottish flag and the Catalan flag. So people in Spain who are for the unity of Spain tend to be more conservative. These are people who tend to be on the what they call the fascists, the far right. They look back at Franco nostalgically, many of them. They are more likely to not support Ukraine than the ones who are all for the separatist movement. And it's the same in Britain with Scottish independence. Yes? So the British working class who is against the Scottish nationalism, they are more likely to be against NATO and pro-Russia. They're more likely to be the ones who realize that Ukraine is Nazi and who reject the swastikas and who remember their grandparents fighting in World War II with all the complexities that entails. But I would associate support of NATO with support of independence movements. So how do you explain that? Maybe
I
you don't agree, but
wait. First thing which I need to say is that we need to finish in a few minutes. So I prefer to say earlier, not to go in that. But I need to show you something. And I think that it will have to be our second conversation. This guy, he's a Pole. He is a Pole. His name is Konrad Renkas, and he is a Polish nationalist. Nationalist with a leftist position in the economic question. He lives now in Scotland. As you see, the conversation which I make with him 3 weeks ago is exactly the same title with I made with you. It's a class struggle in England. So I make this conversation firstly with him about the subject, now with you. And he is like a Pole. He is active in socialist movement, independent leftist movement in Scotland because he is living in Scotland, and he is uh, against banderist. He is a very, very good guy to fighting banderist. His speeches, his articles, and it is why he is living in Scotland, because like me, he had problems with Agencja Bezpieczeństwa Wewnętrznego in Poland. He is in all the list of the spies of the Kremlin, spies of Putin, and stuff like this. So the existence of this guy show that you are not right, because he supports Scottish independent, and
No,
in the
no, it
same
doesn't.
time he's against banderist.
Yes, yes, but in Spanish we say that the exception confirms the rule. I mean, one. When I make this point, I'm saying that anecdotally, when I browse Twitter and in my own experience, I noticed that I see the Scottish flag and the Ukrainian flag very often together in Twitter, and I see much more often that people who support independence, Scottish independence, or the SNP, or Alex Salmond and his new party, they are more likely to be pro-Ukraine. They are also. It's just a tendency that I noticed. Uh, of course, there will be exceptions. You know, you are an exception, but but it doesn't prove or disprove. Um, I see it a lot, you know, because if you're on Twitter in UK and you have a lot of you see you go through these comment sections and lots of people have lots of flags, it stands out. And to me, it's, you know, vaccines and like quadruple vaccination, Ukraine flag, LGBT flag, and Scottish flag go together in the. Um, I know this is not statistics and it's not scientific. But it's my observation.
Yes, but wait. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I wanted to say something, but okay. Listen, Comrade Max. There are some questions which we need to continue to discuss.
Can I quickly answer
Yes.
the last one? So we got a question: how British communists think about the monarchy. I can't speak for all British communists, but you know, of course, we are. We don't support the monarchy. We are against the monarchy. Um, However, it's not the most important thing to struggle for right now, and there's no Republican movement in Britain. If there were a strong Republican movement in Britain, it would become a more important question on our agenda. But because it's not, you know, we know that if we get rid of the monarchy, things are not going to change. It's not going to significantly improve people's lives. This is not the main issue. So yeah, it's kind of a side issue at the moment. Maybe this will change. Maybe the Republican sentiment will grow, and we'll be able to agitate with that in the future. But at the moment, I don't think we're there yet.
Wait. I have some joke.
Yeah, yeah, go on.
I am I am against monarchy with one exception, DPRK.
uh,
But it's a
the
joke.
next one, yeah. The next one. Do you think that this increased nationalism, which still brings nothing but damage, would not have taken place if it had not been for the division of Europe after World War One? It's yeah, like somehow I I don't know what to say to that. I mean, to me, it all goes in a parcel. Because are we supposing that Europe is not divided after World War One because we don't have imperialist system? I don't know what to answer to that. Sorry, Pablo. Um, uh, is there any other question? Do you see any other question?
Yes, there is one question. You support Livonia separatism from Latvia. I think that it is the Russian speaking, but I am not sure. I will check.
I
But
can't comment because I don't know what this is.
wait. Um,
But just to conclude, for me, I'm not sure about separatism in general. I don't have. I'm not opposed to all separatism or for all separatism. I'm still learning, um, and so I would go on a case by case basis when it comes to supporting separatism or not. Like in the case of the Donbass, I supported the separatism of Donbass from Ukraine.
you see that there are. Uh, Okay, but we need to finish this Livonia. It's not Russian. It's like Ugrofinian nations, which. But if it provoked if it weakened the Baltic state, I don't know how it is possible weaken the Baltic state because they are already weak, and it is possible make this puppet states more weak, but if it yes, we need supported because especially Baltic state because they are very active to provoke the all this war which is now in Eastern Europe. They are especially Litva, this not Lithuania but Litva, this not Latvian but Litva. They are very harsh against China. The small Litva, they make sanctions against
Yes, they
China,
they, they,
and now
they made a move to with Taiwan, didn't they? As well
no,
last
and
year.
also they block the Kaliningrad.
Oh yeah.
Yes, so they are, they are they have very tough guy in government. They don't scare anything. Ah.
Yeah, very short leash. Yeah.
Okay, so it was a pleasure to talk with you, and we can continue, but not today because I start work in the night.
So it's
In
my pleasure too. I know. You must be. Are you going to get some sleep now?
yes, some sleep, and but the one good thing that I'm working in my frozen storehouse is that. Even if I not slept in before, it's impossible to sleep there because but after I'm very tired, so it's better to sleep a little.
So you
So
must.
see
It's been
you.
a pleasure. Take care.
Take